scallop. So that's simple. Another one here, 6 here, and then line here. It's also pretty simple. Just bring the line up here to the top. Now we have the 8. From the 8, it's pretty simple. Just make the scallop and then solve it. Here are some more easy cases. So here I have the pawn here and mushroom or muffin on bottom. So what you can do is notice that if you connect this line on top like this, it creates this easy case with all pairs. So with all pairs, you can bring down one pair down here like this. Then that would create scallop and just solve it from here. Here's another similar case, pawn, mushroom or muffin. And when you have this, again, just connect this line to the top. Now we have all pairs. Connect this pair with this pair. Now we have 4 and 4, which is scallop. And then solve it from here. Lastly, this case, 3 and 3 here, and then this line here. So what you can do here is pretty similar to the previous two cases. So just bring up this line here to the top and connect it with this. Like that. And now we have the 4, the 2, and the 2. With the 2s, you can just connect them like that to make scallop, and then solve it from here. Here's another case, scallop here, and then shield on bottom, so 2 pairs of edges. So what you can do here is pretty simple. Preserve this 4, and then just hide 1 pair of edges. Bring this 2 over, and then bring the pair back down. Now we're left with scallop. So again, hide this, bring this over, bring it back down, scallop. Next, there's these cases. So here you kind of have a pawn here, and then a pair on the side. And then you also have a line on the bottom. So what you do here is bring up this line to the top. Now we have a 4, and then the pair. And this is a pretty familiar case. And I'll do it from the back. Bring this pair down, and do scallop. So very similar here. Pawn here, and then the 2 here, and then the line here. So bring up the line here, connect it with this to create 4 and 2, and now we can bring down this pair to the bottom to create scallop. So here's a few more cases. So here's pawn. So if you remember from before, if you have good pawn, then you can get a pretty easy solution. Here's bad pawn, however, you'll notice that if there's a line here, the reflection is incorrect. The 2 is here, and the L is on bottom, while on this side, the L is on top, and then the 2 is on the bottom. So whenever you have bad pawn, this is what you do. Put them on opposite sides of the cube, like this. Slice up, and now we have this case. So from here, break it into scallop, and then solve from there. Here's also a pretty bad case, barrel square. But what we can do here is bring up this L to connect it with this pair. Now you're left with this bad pawn case. From here, connect them like this, and then create the scallop, and then solve from here. So last two cases here. So here we have fist on top, and then barrel on bottom. So what you do here is you'll notice that we have this L here and a line here, and then the 2 pairs here. So we can bring up one of these pairs on top while connecting it with this L and kicking out this line here. So going ahead and doing this. Now we're left with this familiar case where we bring up the L again here to make this pair, which we can connect down to make the scallop, and then solve scallop. Something very similar is done here. Again, it's fist, barrel. So first off, preserve this L, kick out this line with one of the pairs to connect it with this L. Now we have this case with the pawn and the mushroom. Bring up the line like this to connect it here to create the 4, this pair, and now connect that pair with this pair to make scallop. Next, with stuff with shield, it's also pretty simple. So here we have a bunch of pairs on top and 1 pair on bottom. So what you can do is bring down one of these pairs like this in a way that creates shield on bottom. Shield's already on top. From here, just do shield. So here we have scallop and then barrel here. So what we can do here is from this angle, go ahead and slice. And you'll notice that with the slice, it will create the shield here. and then the shield here. And from here, just do shield, shield. Here are the last two cases. So for here, I have shield and barrel. So what I can do is turn this barrel into shield by taking this pair, bringing it to the top, move this slightly over and bring the pair back down to create shield. And now we have shield, shield, and we can solve it like this. This case is mushroom kite. Pretty ugly case, but you'll notice that if you can bring this line down to the bottom, connect it with this line, that we're just left with that case, shield barrel. From here, same thing. Turn this barrel into a shield by hiding this, moving this over, and bringing this back down. Now we have shield, shield, and we can solve it like this. Next, for cases that go into shield square, these are actually quite easy. So first off, we have this. So you'll notice that we have a shield thing here, 2 and 2, and this L here. Connect this L with the bottom L to create a square. Then we get shield square. This case is pretty similar. We have a shield thing as you can see here, and this L here, as well as an L on the bottom. Connect this L to the bottom to make the square, and then you're left with shield square. Next, there's good pawn fist. So for this case, you'll notice that when you bring this L down to create a square on bottom, you'll make a shield on top. And from here you can solve shield square. Same idea here. We have pawn and then shield. So same thing here. What we can do is bring down this L to the bottom to create a square. Then you have shield square, then solve it like this. So whenever you have a case like this, so pawn and fist, and you want to bring down this L to the bottom to make the square, but it doesn't make a shield, that means you have bad pawn fist. So if it's bad pawn fist, you should refer to a solution, which is later in this video. But if it is good pawn fist, it should lead to shield square. Here are the next few cases. So for here we have a pawn here, and then an L with a pair on bottom. So what we can do is turn these two L's into a square, and then bring this down to the bottom to create a shield. So to do this, hide this L first, bring this all over a little bit, and then bring this back up. That creates a square on top, and then shield's already on bottom. Solve the square shield. Same is done here. So again, the pawn is on the left, we have the L here on the right, and then the pair right here. This case is also pretty simple. So what you do is take this L, replace the two of it and connect it with one of these. So once you connect it here, you're pretty much left with that case that I just showed you. So you have a pawn here, the L, and this pair. So make the square on top by preserving this, moving this L over, moving it back up, square shield, and then solve the square shield. So next we have these cases. So over here I have shield on top and then kite on bottom. So we want to turn the kite into a square to get a shield square, which is better. So the way you do this is hide the shield on bottom, misalign this L up here so it becomes a square, not a kite. Slice back down and you'll see that this becomes a square. So again, we have kite on bottom, preserve these four edge pieces, misalign the L, bring the edge pieces back up. Now we have a square. Then we have shield squared, which is pretty easy. Next case is this one. So we have mushroom and then we have barrel. This is pretty simple. Just bring this L down here. Now we have shield kite. So this is just what we did before. Turn this kite into a square by preserving this, misaligning, bringing it back down, shield square. Here's another case. So we have 2, 2, 2, and then this line. So again, it's pretty simple. Just bring down this pair down here. Now we have shield and kite. So here you can do it from this angle, where you preserve the L, move the L over, bring the L back down to get the square. Now we have shield square, and we can solve it from here. So here are the last few cases. First off, we have fist fist. If you remember from before, good fist fist can be done in 2 slices, but this is a bad fist fist, which is a bit longer. So if you have this, you want to bring this L down to the bottom in a way to connect with this L to create a kite, like this. And now you notice we have shield kite. So do this, misalign the L, bring it back down to get shield square, and solve it like this. Same with the other bad fist. Bring this L down to connect it with this L. Create the kite. Now we have shield kite. Turn it into shield square like this, and then solve it like usual. Here's the final case, which is the longest CS case, which is kite square. This is pretty bad actually, but it could be done pretty fast actually because it's 2gen. So first off, we have the kite in this orientation. We could bring these two down here to turn it into fist, bad fist. From here, just again like before, bring the L down, connect it with this L to create the kite. From here, just do kite shield, which is turning it into shield square and solving it from there. Now for the cases with pawn. Here's the first one, 6 here and 2. You can divide it in half like this so that you can kind of visualize one pawn here, slice it down, and then solve it from here. Pawn. Here's another case. So here you can break it down into 4 and 1 L, but a better way to visualize it is like this, a pawn and 1 L. So bring down this L to connect it with this pair. Now you're left with pawn. Next case is here, 3, and this L in the back. So what we can do is kick out this while bringing up this L. So now we created the pawn here. The pawn's already on bottom, and then solve it from here, pawn. Next, there's these cases. So here we have fist on top and then shield on bottom. So what we can do here is see this line from the fist and connect it with these pieces. So bring up this shield like this. Now we have 3 and this L, and this is a pretty familiar case. Go ahead and turn this into pawn like this, and then solve pawn. Same idea here. You have the L from the fist connected with the shield on bottom here. Now we have 3 and this L, so connect the L with this to create pawn, and then solve it like this. So next we're going to cover bad pawn fist. So we already covered the good solution, which is going into shield square, but if it's bad, this is what you do. So the way we solve this is by turning this into good pawn, by turning the fist into a pawn. So you'll notice that if we move this 2 here, then we'll actually get good pawn. So the way we solve this is hide this to the top layer, move the 2 over, bring the L down, now we get good pawn. So solve it like this. Same idea in the other case. Here we have pawn on the left side, and then we have this and this. So what we can do to create good pawn is move this L here. So we can hide this pair here, bring the L over, bring the pair back down. Now we have good pawn. Next is these cases, which aren't too great. So it's fist and then mushroom or muffin. So what I do is hold this L to the left and hold this pair to the right side. So what I can do here is hide this line from the mushroom to the top layer, bring all this shield stuff to the left, and then bring the line back down. And now we have this case, 3 and this L. From here, just one slice into pawn. So same idea here. We have the L here and then the pair here on the right. So hold this pair to the right, take this line, bring it to the top layer to preserve it, put all the shield stuff to the left, and then bring the line back down. Now there's 3. Now we have L 3, which is one slice into pawn. So yeah, that should be it for all the CS cases for square 1. Hopefully it wasn't that bad. The basic idea is to reduce the cube shape of the square 1 into other cube shapes that you know that are a bit better until you get the square. As you've seen from this video, learning different angles for square 1 cube shapes is extremely important for square 1. Throughout this video, I've used a lot of different angles from different algorithms because they avoid unnecessary U and D moves. So they are quite important and I would recommend getting really good at those. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching and hopefully you found this helpful. When a lot of people think of square one, they might think of memorizing a million algs, and they might think of EP, which is the last step of square one, which has around 100 cases, I believe. So a lot of the newer square learners might believe, oh, there's 100 cases, you probably have to memorize an algorithm for each one of those. Even a lot of intermediate square oneers are pretty eager to start learning EP algs and try to get an early head start on the 100 algs. However, I can guarantee you that learning EP algs is pretty dumb and not really important to solving square one. So for some examples, Rasmus, who held several WRs for square one, he knows I think less than 15 EPs, and people like Ethan Ayres, he was the winner of last year's US Nationals for square one. He knows like 5 EPs, which is absolutely insane. Learning all the EP algs was maybe quite more popular before the cheese square one. So people like Brendan Lin, they usually learned a ton of EP algs, but these days I think it's really not important, and I'll show you why. Since I do use CSP, I won't be talking about parity in this video, unfortunately, but you can use some techniques in this video and apply it with the parity algorithm, and that can fix some EPs as well. So in my opinion, the best way to solve every EP without learning auto a million algs is to solve every case relatively intuitively while making sure the slice count is as little as possible. Also, as a reminder, this is not a tutorial for EP for square one. This is just an intuitive way to solve pretty much every EP. And all of it, I'll just be showing you how you do it in general, and you have to figure it out for every case for it. But it should be pretty simple to figure out. If you don't already know, M2 is also extremely important for EPs, but if you don't know the alg, it's just that, misalign the top, align and misalign the bottom. This is pretty popular in square one. It's just called M2 because it kind of does an M2 for the square one. So first off, let's start with edge. This is pretty simple. It's the basic alg that everyone knows pretty much. So this is pretty important to know from different angles. So here's the back one. The way I would think about this intuitively is slice U, M2, U prime slice. That's edge. Slice U, M2, U prime slice. Stuff like this in the front also works. Slice D, M2, D prime slice. That's edge again. Slice D prime, M2, D prime slice. There's actually more angles you do edge from. You can do stuff with the bottom misaligned like this. Slice U prime, M2, U slice, and that's edge from this angle. So there's actually a ton of angles you can do edge from, which is decently important in my opinion. You can also do opposite swaps with M2, so M2, U2, M2. That's op. And another way you can do this is the 3 slicer, which is not really an algorithm, but it's quite easy to remember. Either that. So this 5, -1, -5, 1. For that op out, you just learned the optimal H prime as well. So if you do that out once and do a U prime and do it again, now you did an H prime optimally, which is 6 slices. So op. So yeah, that was pretty simple. So whenever you can do something from the top, you can do something from the bottom as well. So if you do op, D, op, and then that's H prime from the bottom. Going back to M2s, now you can do Z primes. So you can do M2, U prime, M2, U, M2. That does a Z prime. M2, U prime, M2, U, M2. That's Z prime. Again, you can do the same thing with the bottom. M prime, D, M2, D prime, M2. So you're just doing M2s in between every U or D move, and that does a Z prime. Z primes, you go one direction and back. If you go in one direction the whole way, then you get O op. So M2, U prime, M2, U prime, M2. That gives O op. Now if you go the opposite direction, that solves the case. M2, U, M2, U, M2. Again, you can do the same thing for the bottom for op O and op other O. Stuff like U primes are pretty simple for the top and bottom. They're done the same way. You can do them like this. Edge, and that's actually optimal. So edge from the back here, and then edge from the back here. And that solves a single U perm. If you have a U perm and then a Z perm on the bottom, or vice versa, it can be done the same exact way. Do an edge from the top and bottom to solve the Z perm edge, like that. And then to force the top to get an edge as well. So something like this. That's edge from the front, and now we're left with edge from the back. And that solves ZU or UZ or any combination of those in an optimal way with just using edges. Here's the double U perm. This one's the bad one. You can't actually cancel anything for this one. So for this one, I would do something like op here, and then edge from the back. 2 AUGs, but still is optimal. Stuff like U, H are also pretty simple to solve. You can do something pretty fun actually. So for these ones, you can do JN like this, and then do JN with the blocks aligned. And that solves the whole EP pretty nicely. So you can do that from the top and bottom letters for any combo of U or H. The thing for U-perms though is that if you have the other U-perm like this, you have to misalign it first sometimes. Do a J-perm, then align it. So you kind of play around with those. Stuff like Z, H, and HZ are also pretty simple. What you just do is something like op, and then you're left with op-O, which is pretty simple. So yeah, stuff like that's pretty simple. You can do it like this too with H on top. It's the same exact thing, op, and then op-O, which is also easy. So you can also do stuff like setup moves. For example, here I have op-edge. So what we can do is 2 slice setup move to bring this and turn it into edge. So to make this into edge, you kind of want to move this edge here, hide this edge, move this over, and then bring it back. Now I have an edge, quote unquote. Now do edge swap here, slice D M2 D prime slice, and then undo those setup moves. And that solves op edge in a relatively optimal way. And you can do this for op edge and edge op. Now I'll go a bit into cancellation. This is also a pretty important part of doing sq1. So let's try to do a double U perm. So we can do it by op and edge from the back, and see how that's a double U perm. So the way you want to make this optimal is you do the op. Instead of doing the last move, which is slice, and then the edge, which is another slice, you don't do the last move at all, and you go straight into the edge. Because it's a waste of time to just do slice, because that's dumb. So in the end, this AUG looks like this. Which is optimal. And then you can play around with the reverse of it, which is like this, where you do edge first. Don't do the last slice of the edge because that's dumb. May as well just go straight into the op AUG. And that's also optimal. Cancellations are also pretty nice with awkward cases like this, where you have O. So for cases like this, you can do stuff like this. If you do something like a Z perm on bottom, now you get O op, but you already know O op from before. So instead of doing that last M2, so Z perm on bottom, instead of doing this last M2, why not just cancel into this O op AUG? Now you just saved a bunch of moves, and that's optimal now. Stuff like ZZ with cancellations is also pretty nice. Edge from the front, edge in the back. So do edge in the front first maybe. Don't do the last slice because it's useless. Go straight into edge of the other side, which is the back, and that solves the whole thing optimally. So edge in front, edge in back. But cancel it, so edge in front, go straight to the back. There's actually another op AUG which switches ops from the side, like this. So the way to solve this is slice U prime D, M2 U D slice. Or you can go the other way, slice U D prime, M2 U prime D slice. That solves op from the side. So knowing that, you can swap op from the front, op from the side to do a double H perm. So without cancellations, it'll be op like this, and then op from the side, which is double H perm. Now if you cancel it, it looks like this. Op, cancel into the side M2 thing, and then you're done. So for some awkward stuff like WW like this, you can do stuff like do the double H perm alg, what we just did before, and then cancel into edge, and then that's still optimal, by the way. So yeah, so I'll start with the H perm, op cancel into the side thing. Now instead of going and finishing off the H perm like this, we can realize that this leads into edge like this. So we can just go ahead and just cancel straight into the edge. So it'll be something like this. H perm alg with the cancellation. And here we're going to cancel into the edge from the end by doing this, and then the M2 again, which does the edge. So the alg for WW ends up being like this. Do an H perm, and then do this. But instead of doing slice and then edge, go straight into the edge by doing the M2. H perm. Here we do edge, but cancel into it here. You can also do stuff like W edge by doing edge into W perm. So for here, edge in the back, like that. Gives you W perm. So what we can do is W perm, cancel into the op, cancel into the edge, and that solves W edge. And you can do something pretty similar to the bottom layer as well. For the rest of the cases, you can always do some kind of edge into W perm combo. I showed all these combos before in a video that I already made, so I won't go through all of them in this video, but you can check out the video in the description if you want to check out all those combos. But here's an example. I have W op, which is not good, so you can do edge from this angle from the back. And now you're left with a W perm, so this one's just an edge into op. Cancellation, so edge in the back, cancel into op. I'm not sure if this is optimal, but it's pretty close. So I guess I'll briefly talk about parity and techniques with parity. So parity EPs is the only argument I think there are for learning algs, because they actually makes a bit more sense. But again, parity EP algs are super long, so I don't think they're worth learning anyway. Here's an example of how you can use parity though with this method in this video. So you can choose where you want to do parity from to give you the best EP. So if I do it from here, switch this, I get op edge, which is not horrible, but it's not great. If I do the edge from here, I get edge, which is much better. If I do parity from the bottom, if I know how to do that, I get single U perm, which is not, again, as great as edge. So I can just do parity from here. And now I'll have edge, which is the best combo for that case. So as you can see from this video, every EP alg can be solved relatively intuitively with pretty much no algs. So hopefully you can understand why I think EP is useless to learn really. I think that doing stuff like this is much better, and you learn less algs and you kind of understand the puzzle more as well. One mistake I do see a lot is people solve one EPLO at a time. So they solve the bottom EPLO first, then they solve the top EPLO. This is a bit inefficient, and instead of doing alg to solve that EP case, what we can do is find out ways to solve that EP case in a way that you're solving both at the same time pretty much. It's usually just a combination of edge, ops, stuff like that. Maybe some M2 spam here and there, but it's pretty relatively simple. The only thing that might be a bit confusing is cancellations, but once you get the hang of it, it should be pretty simple. And the idea is just, instead of doing a slice twice, just go straight into the other alg. So hopefully you can understand that technique, and it's actually used in quite a bit of puzzles, so it's quite important to know. The general rule for EP for sq1 is if it's longer than 10 slices or 11 slices, then you probably are doing something wrong. And you should probably be looking at what better solutions you can do for that EP. So hopefully this video was a bit helpful. If there are any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And hopefully this convinced you to not learn EP algs, but do EP a bit more intuitively.
CSP, or cube shape parity, is a method in sq1 where you never get parity by eliminating any parity errors while doing cube shape. This method has been one of the biggest jumps in terms of methods for sq1. In this video, you'll learn how to track if there is parity or not in inspection. There are 90 cube-shaped cases, not including mirrors, but they are all tracked the same. The way this works is by counting the number of parities the puzzle has by looking for specific parts of the cube. If the number is odd, then there is parity. If the number is even, then there is no parity. The 6 things you'll need to look for is parity in the white and yellow edges, in the white and yellow corners, and all position edges and corners. This may sound complicated, but this will all be cleared up in this video. Keep in mind that this method is not easy to understand, but is very beneficial at the end. I recommend this method only if you want to be world class at sq1 and if you're already sub 15. However, if you're really determined to get good at sq1, feel free to start learning this whenever you want. First, you need to know the order for tracing corners and edges. I like to start on the top layer from the bottom left and go clockwise around the top layer. Then I start the bottom layer from the top right and go clockwise around that layer. Here's what the order looks like in a different cube shape. Where you start is also important. In the reference schemes, you will always start at a certain piece. For example, in this case, it's this piece. Whenever you get a scramble where the layer is misaligned, you would start at that same piece. For example, the top layer is misaligned in this one. We're not going to start here, but rather, we're going to start from the piece that we started in the reference scheme. First, let's do the white edges. We'll use the most basic cube shape case. Remember, we start from the bottom left and we go clockwise around the top layer. So we're going to run into this white edge as red, so we're going to keep note of red. The next one is green, so it's red, green. The last one is orange, so we've got a pattern of red, green, orange, which is our pattern of 3 white edges. The idea is to reduce the 3 colors into a more manageable 2 colors, more specifically 2 non-opposite colors. By now, I would assume that you will know your opposite colors. To do this, we need to identify where the 2 opposite colors are of the 3 and eliminate one of them. These opposite colors can be the first 2, the last 2, or the first and last. Whenever they are the first 2, eliminate the middle one and keep the first and last ones. Whenever they are the last 2, eliminate the last one and keep the middle and first ones. Whenever they are the first and last, eliminate the first one and keep the last and middle ones. The last thing to memorize is which 2 colors are parity. All you need to know is that blue and orange means parity, and green and red means parity. Any combination of 2 colors other than these would mean no parity. Doing this for edges is easy, but for corners it's a bit more difficult. Since corners have 2 colors, you have to pick one. I always take the one to the right. It'll be green here, and it'll be red here. On the bottom layer, it's a bit more tricky, so I flip it over, and that's the right one, orange. And on, it'll be blue, red, blue here, and then orange. So it's everyone on the right as if it were facing you.